How often do you think about the Oscars? About how many Oscar winning films there are and how many you've seen? Yeah, there's a few famous Oscar winning films that we've all seen, The Godfather and Lord of the Rings and Titanic, I'm King of the World, all that stuff. But the Oscars have been running since 1927. There are currently over 1,000 films, feature length films, which have won an Oscar. How many have you seen? I did the numbers for myself. It's not many, and I consider myself quite a movie buff. So here then is the premise of this podcast. Every episode, I and a rotating cast of 2 guests will randomly select one of the 1,000 films that have won an Oscar, watch it, and talk about it, with the only requirement being that one of the 3 people on each episode has to have never seen the movie before we talk about it. That will get difficult with Star Wars. Please note that our coverage of a movie does not constitute an endorsement of it. My least favorite movie of 2016, David Ayer's Suicide Squad, won an Oscar for Best Makeup, while my favorite movie of 2016, The Handmaiden, wasn't even nominated for anything. Please also note that our coverage of a movie is not a blanket endorsement of any or all of the people involved in it. A lot of terrible people have won Oscars. Kevin Spacey won an Oscar 20 years before he was outed as an abuser, and Roman Polanski won one 20 years after. But every film, good, bad, or in many cases mediocre, that has won an Oscar is an important part of film history just for being there. And they all, on some level, deserve a tiny bit of consideration, even if that consideration ends up concluding that it's garbage.
And with all of that in mind, I'm your host, Ellie McConaughey. With me today is Sam Marchioni.
I'd like to petition that we stop making the isn't war tragic movies until we actually stop doing war.
And Jasmine Garcia.
That could be me doing things like Clara, like stalking my boyfriend, I guess, except he's not even really my boyfriend.
And we are here today to talk about drum roll. I mean, why am I going to do a drum roll? It was very loud. We're here to talk about Wings, the 1927 film, which won, what is it, most outstanding picture at the first Academy Awards, which I think they sort of retroactively decided was best picture. It was nominated for best engineering effects.
It won.
It won. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. It's like it won a second one. Yeah, it won best engineering effects. I don't think it was really nominated for much of anything else, which makes sense. It was a big spectacle movie.
Yeah, that tracks.
Is Wings the 1927 equivalent of Avatar? Much to think about.
I mean, this was also the ceremony when somebody could win an Oscar for multiple movies.
You will see over the course of like the Academy, there are a handful of instances where one person won for multiple movies, and there are a couple of instances where one award went to multiple people. This year, in fact, in the first Academy Award, Best Actor went to Emil Jennings for The Last Command and The Way of All Flesh.
Yeah, because this was before they decided it had to be an exact tie.
Mm-hmm. And while that would normally like make covering those movies complicated, The Way of All Flesh is a lost movie, so.
Lost media, R.I.P.
So we are here to talk about Wings. So fulfilling our requirement that one of our participants not have seen the movie is, I believe, all 3 of us. Yes.
Yep.
This is everyone's first time through. So what did you 2 think of Wings?
Boy, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
A little bit. Like, I said this both in our chat and on Letterboxd. I am fascinated by this movie because on the one hand, there are so many aspects of it that feel so commonplace within its genre, especially.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, there is so much about it, especially storytelling wise, you could never get away with in a modern film.
It does have some extremely wild tonal shifts throughout, especially in the back half. Like the first,
it's just a bunch of stuff that happened a lot of the times.
I noted this in our chat while I was like watching it the first time. Way more of the upfront part of this movie is a wacky comedy. Like it's not quite screwball, but it's like getting there. than I think people would think coming, because the image I had in my head of this movie is like a serious war drama.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Clara Bow was originally a comedian, right?
Clara Bow is a comedian, and it was originally a comedian, and
Was she on vaudeville? She feels like she was someone who did vaudeville.
I mean, a lot of things about silent films
a
feel
lot
like
of
Exactly.
a
vaudeville.
lot of silent film acting does very much remind me of mime. Obviously, it's
Mhm.
not literally mime because you have the objects in front of you. You kind of have to exaggerate everything you do, especially the way you talk. There's a lot more dialogue than gets title cards in this movie. I noticed. Did anyone notice that?
Yeah, I noticed it, and it made me want to do a bad lip reading. Because I am an absolute child.
Sometimes they don't give title cards for scenes where you don't need to be told that she's saying "Oh Jack" in that scene. You
Yeah.
can pick that up. One thing that
Yeah.
I noticed is okay. So the plot of Wings, for those of you who haven't seen it, very very quick recap is it's this kid in 1917 decides he's going to sign up for the U.S. Army and go off to World War One as a pilot. He's a very successful pilot. There's a love triangle, sort of. It's not very much of a focus.
Love Square almost.
We'll talk about it. And he makes good friends with his buddy, with this like rich asshole from his hometown, and
Not even an
well,
asshole.
I
Just
think that was the intent. But one of the things that I noticed is that, like, in a lot of modern love triangle or romance movies, one member of the triangle is always a complete shitheel, which
Yeah,
is definitely not the case. Everyone's very nice in this movie.
pretty much, yeah. Bad at
Well,
communicating, but nice.
honestly, Jack's the biggest
Jack is
asshole.
the biggest asshole. Anyway, so his buddy gets shot down after they have an argument, but then steals a German plane and tries to fly back, but Jack shoots him down. He thinks he's a German, kills him. Goes home, apologizes to his parents, confesses his love to the girl he actually likes. End of the movie. One of the things that I noticed is that the conversation he has with David is the friend, David's parents, only has one title card. Like it is a very clearly dialogue heavy conversation, but it doesn't have any title card except for right at the very end.
Like, are they trying to do a montage kind of thing? Like, is this like the granddaddy of the montage? Almost?
I think what it is that it's really hard to put into words that kind of utter pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so like why try to write it when you can just have your actors emote it and have your audience fill in the
Mm-hmm.
blanks?
I think there is value to that sort of thing for sure.
Absolutely. Incidentally, those of you at home might have noticed a very similar plot summary of this movie to Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor
Yeah.
from 2001.
It's all I could think of for a good chunk of the parts that were actually about the character dynamics.
Like Pearl Harbor is basically Wings, but in World War II, and much worse.
And with less technical achievement.
Well, that's sort of the thing. Like, I wonder. I think we mentioned this when I decided that I wanted our first episode to be Wings. Wings is one of those movies that once you've seen it, you can see its influence on a lot of
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Especially like
Mhm.
I have in my notes that you can literally see the film grammar of dogfights that Star Wars would use being invented right here.
Yeah, speaking of Star Wars, it should be noted the version that we watched on archive.org, which hooray for public domain and hooray for archive.org, protected at all costs, is the 2012 remaster, which bumped this up from a degree 6 to a degree 5 because the sound engineer wizard of Star Wars, Ben Burt, oversaw the 2012 restoration.
Wow.
If we're going with the original release, it's still a degree 6 because it features Gary Cooper in a small role, and Gary Cooper went on to do a film called The Naked Edge with one Peter Cushing.
Star Wars, man. Star Wars.
Star Wars.
It's everywhere, and it's coarse and rough and irritating.
Right. And you can see that, and some of the stuff like I didn't look up a lot of stuff about this film's production. I remember I did go digging to see if I could find out what the hell was going. For the record, film watchers, there is a version of this up on Tubi. Don't watch that version. It has a single piece of music that loops incessantly. It is completely disconnected from what's happening on screen, and it will drill into your brain. Watch the one on archive.org. It's a good restoration of the movie.
With that said, the lack of music, at least for me, especially during the dogfights, was a bit of a problem. I really felt like the action scenes did not hit quite as hard as they should have because of lack of music, at least in my opinion. We needed somebody playing the organ in the room.
Well, that's sort of the thing. Like, you can see a lot of the technical limitations because, they made this in 1926. Obviously, they didn't have digital photography, but there's a lot of very impressive
No, for
shots
sure.
in there.
The majority of the budget clearly went into the dogfights and the aerial shooting.
Right, I was looking up some info on the shoot, and apparently, like, most movies were shot in like a month back then. This was a 9-month shoot. Like, it was insane how much time they had to put into the dogfights. But there's also there's that really interesting pan through the bar, which as long as you're doing the Star Wars connection, is kind of like referenced in The Last Jedi. They're not talking about The Last Jedi. But you can, and there's also that swing shot, which is, again, for 1926, extremely impressive. It's probably nothing major now, but it's interesting. It's interesting to see this film be referenced nowadays, but not really seen anymore, if that makes sense.
No, for sure.
I would think that we're all pretty major film nerds, and this was the first time any of us had seen it.
I mean, I think part of it is just silent films. This is the only silent film ever to win Best Picture, and if there's one thing that Americans hate in their movies, it's reading.
No. Yeah.
Maybe not us respectively, but
yeah.
I mean, I admit that I'm a pretty extreme outlier here. I watch a lot of foreign films. I watch a lot of silent films.
Subtitles Georg lives in a cave watching nothing but foreign films and should be considered an outlier.
Yes, an outlier and should not be counted.
Yeah. I mean, I put subtitles on pretty much everything that I watch, so this wasn't really that has never been the reason why I never really got into silent films. This is the first one I watched in its entirety. I did try watching the 20s Phantom at one point, but I didn't quite get through it, unfortunately.
Okay, but which version that's for another day. That's for another day.
Yes.
I mean, that's interesting in and of itself because it is a very I don't have any data in front of me on how many subtitles this had, how many title cards this had versus other movies, but it felt very title card heavy. And maybe that's just because most of the silent films I've watched are visuals heavy, story light, stuff like Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin. You don't need that many title cards in a Charlie Chaplin film.
No.
You mostly just need Charlie Chaplin being Charlie Chaplin. But it did feel very it did feel very much like a movie of its era. It's kind of stodgy. It is relentlessly sincere. I don't know if I can overstate this to audiences who haven't seen this. There is not a cynical bone in this movie's body.
Except maybe the bubbles scene.
I don't know. The bubble scene is a lot. I don't know.
The bubble scene. What the fuck?
If I was a producer on this film and there was one thing I would tell the director to cut, hey, this 20-minute sequence in the middle where Jack gets drunk and obsessed with hallucinating bubbles, you can lose that.
Again, shit you would not be able to get away with in a modern film.
Let's. I mean, thinking of modern films, we can talk a little bit about the plot and themes of the movie. Although the main theme of the movie isn't much more than war is bad, y'all.
We should stop doing it.
We keep making movies about that, and yet they keep doing war.
They do.
Yeah.
It doesn't even. There's this famous quote. I don't remember who said it, but the quote that I remember a lot is that there's no such thing as an actually anti-war movie. Because in making an anti-war movie, you have to depict war, and some people will find that glorious.
Yeah.
I don't know if I totally agree. I mean,
I see the point.
I see. I mean, I feel like Come and See, or maybe to use something a little bit more mainstream, Dunkirk, kind of depict war as less something kind of glamorous and more as this unholy nightmare you'll never escape.
I mean, Dunkirk made me want to go to war against Christopher Nolan and be like, stop making this movie!
No, he should not.
I don't like Dunkirk.
He should not stop making that movie. I am unfortunately, as of I don't know, like a couple years ago. I am unfortunately in the Chris Nolan let him cook camp.
Oh, I am too. Don't worry. I'm with you, Ellie.
I'm sorry, Sam. I love you.
But anyway,
Anyway,
it's interesting you mentioned that, Sam. There were definitely people who looked at Dunkirk and were just like, "See, this is back when men were really men. Modern men wouldn't be able to do this." I know. I hate it too.
yeah, modern men couldn't react so badly to the prospect of going back to war that they accidentally murder someone.
Right? Like it's
Yeah, but you know what else modern men won't do? Tenderly hug their friend and kiss him as he's dying.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's just like friendship.
Well,
Aha.
so people do point that as like very early queer representation. I think you're being a little overblown there with that.
No, but there is a moment of like blink and you miss a queer representation.
There is a lesbian couple in the bar in the pan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yep, I saw them.
and it's interesting because that particular shot, I recently saw that on making the rounds on social media, like people just kind of saying like, no, this shot is incredible, especially considering the time.
It is I saw it on social media too, so I was on the lookout for it, and now I was on the lookout for those two girls in the.
I mean, it's not exactly the best example of representation, even by the blink and you'll miss it thing, because the Folie Bergère is in the same vein as the Moulin Rouge or any other kind of location like that in Paris. It's supposed to be a den of iniquities and luxury and sin, and we are not made to last in this world because we are too sinful.
Right. We're not going to go into the part of the reason why I feel like the kiss between the main two dudes is overblown is like, are you going to tell me the first queer kiss in Tolkien is when Aragorn gently kisses Boromir on the forehead?
No, we're not going to do that.
No, we're not going to do that. Although I did put this in my notes. Both Mary, who is Jack's love interest, and David at one point say him, "Don't you know me?" when he is in an altered mental state. So, just throwing that out there.
Sam, I think we can add this to this could have been solved with polyamory boat.
Especially poor Sylvia.
Sylvia, not a character. I feel bad for Sylvia. She's in like 3 scenes of the movie. That was the other thing.
She's great.
She is very good. She looks $1 million, if nothing else. I love that dress she's wearing. Is that available?
Very good cry face.
Very good cry face.
Jabina Ralston looks lovely, and like I totally get why both these guys are in love with her, but then like I don't know. Hey Jack, maybe you should have a conversation with Sylvia and apologize for relationship zoning her.
Yeah, you really should.
Yeah, that would be a nice thing to do. I will say, Mary, Clara Bow's character gets like Clara Bow got top billing in this movie.
Yep.
You're lying. You're lying when you did that. That was a lie. Stop lying.
If they had put her into Best Actress, it would have been category fraud.
Like, here's my question: was she already considered like the it girl at the time? Which I will get into. I will get into explaining my opening joke.
we will check and let me look at her filmography. Oh my god.
Yeah, let me double check. Like, because that's the thing. Like, she was actually a huge star at the time. And what's especially funny about this is that is directly referenced in, of all things, the Bonnie and Clyde musical, because Bonnie was utterly obsessed with her and wanted to, like, it's a recurring thing. I want to be her. I want to be her. And of course, the irony of it is more people know who Bonnie was now than they know who Clara Bow was.
Yeah, so 1927 was also the year the film It came out. Oh. It has nothing to do with Stephen King and a horror clown. It's just a movie called It that starred Clara Bow, and that was the origin of the It girl.
So, okay, so they were roughly contemporary, basically. So
her first, I do know that her first, like, one of her earliest big films that people remember is Man Trap, which came out the year before in 26. I'm not an expert on Clara Bow. If people want to come correct me, they can. But I feel like she was already being used as like a main selling point for movies at this point.
Yeah, like her star was definitely on the rise, at least.
I guess it's kind of like how, Zendaya pops up in Spider-Man and then suddenly Zendaya is everywhere because we all agree Zendaya rocks.
We did all agree that Zendaya rocks.
Yeah, I think that's actually pretty accurate.
I don't actually like those Spider-Man movies very much, but I like her in them.
Mm.
I just needed a superhero hot take so we could get people yelling at me on Twitter. Yeah, we mentioned we mentioned like the connection to Pearl Harbor a minute ago, which is such an interesting comparison because I do feel like there's something there, but I haven't seen Pearl Harbor recently enough to nail it down.
The last time I saw it, I expunged it from my brain because my brother was on a kick about the Doolittle Raiders, and I'm like, okay, fine, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up.
I feel like please make fun of me for this when I say it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I feel like the last time I saw it was when it came out in theaters.
Ha ha, Ellie is old.
Confession time. I've never seen it in full. I've only seen videos from people we don't want to talk about.
It's extremely bad.
It does not look good.
Don't get me and Alana on it, because we'll start pointing like her hair's too loose and that skirt is wrong. And
Okay, but I am not criticizing how Kate Beckinsale looks in that movie. That's like the only thing I genuinely it almost makes me want to watch it because Kate Beckinsale looks amazing.
I don't like. I'm not gonna say that mode of criticism isn't authentic, isn't like valuable.
Mm.
I just don't give a shit.
Yeah.
The vibes have to be right. Like most,
Mm-hmm.
that's usually my rule. But like, there's just so much wrong with it as a movie, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
does go. I think that I was now that I'm like sitting here thinking about it, it kind of does go back to the comparison I made. In most modern love triangles, one of these three characters has to be a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Pearl Harbor made the mistake that all three of them are kind of shitty, just kind of like passively shitty to all of the other members, including themselves, basically the entire movie. It's also like
Pearl Harbor should have been a telenovela, not a movie.
there is point
Ooh.
number two. Like it is also just such the focus of the movie. There's this great quote from I think it's Ebert when he was reviewing the film where he said it's a movie about how in 1941 the Japanese bombed an American love triangle.
Oh,
No. I mean, you're not wrong.
Right, it's such the focus of the movie, like the actual war going
Real life
on.
tragedy.
Barely. I mean, there's a very lengthy combat sequence, but it's not like the focus
That's not
of
what
the
you're here
film.
for.
It's not even long enough to be like the sinking of the Titanic, where in Titanic, which is another film that I feel is very, very much in the vein of Wings, big
I can see it.
spectacle-driven romance movies with
yeah, but Titanic doesn't have the comedic hijinks of a Dutchman continuously being discriminated against, and then he takes off his jacket to show his Stars and Stripes Forever tattoo.
that's I did want to talk about that segment because it's like
That was fascinating to me.
it happens like three times and you expect it to pay off and then it just doesn't. Then he just leaves the movie.
Yeah, because like at first I'm just like, oh, that's actually kind of neat that they're calling out xenophobia, but no, they make him a goofus.
And then they write him out of the movie because he flunked out
Mhm.
of training camp, and then we're good to be
So it's just
calling the
boo.
Germans things like Fockers and Heinies. God, I love old-timey slang for how dumb it is.
Yeah, that's fair. That it is very dumb slang sometimes. No, like the Dutch thing is interesting because I don't know, like I have to assume since they were making this 10 years after the end of the war or 8 years after the end of the war that it was accurate. It's like why are you racist against the Dutch? They didn't do anything in World War One. They were just neutral.
I think it was just general xenophobia. Or like the fucker didn't even know the difference between Dutch and German.
I mean, if we had Kyle here, Kyle could probably elaborate on a lot of it, but
True.
Back on topic. Back on topic. The way racism kind of plays into the movie is weird, and maybe I was just like expecting it to be worse because one of the movies they did make me watch in film school was Birth of a Nation, which no matter
Ooh.
how like if you've never seen it, no matter how bad you think it is, it's worse.
Oh, great.
It is impossible to sum up the cumulative effect of 3 hours of that fucking movie without actually enduring it, which may have been the point, whatever. But like it's not that kind of racist. It's more just kind of like, I mean, they do the like evil German taunting the good guys thing towards the back half, which again, I don't know if that really like do they like pay that off at all? Like, does the leader of the flying circus come back?
I don't think so.
I mean, he's the one who sends the letter of "We shot down your pilot."
He is, but but
True.
after that, like, I expected that to, like, was okay. So here's the question I wanted to ask. And I was trying to like not lead either of you. When David steals the plane and flies off, is the guy on the ground he shoots the leader of the flying circus?
Do we find out?
I don't know. And the thing is, this feeds into one of the reasons I hate war movies. There are too many white men. I can't tell them apart.
Silent movies are also kind of difficult to tell apart, especially in military, because they've all kind of got the same haircut. Some of them don't appear like the only time the leader of the flying circus appeared in other scenes was when he had his like mask and helmet on. So I can't tell if that was intended to be him. Is the long and short.
Mm.
Guess we'll never know unless someone wants to call up director William A. Wellman.
I think he's dead.
No, he's got to be alive. Let's check. No, he only
He
died.
dead.
He only died 50 years ago.
Oh, hey, he's from Boston.
He is from our neck of the woods. So I guess more yours than mine. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There isn't a lot going thematically. Again, part of the flip side of not having any cynical bones in your body is that you also don't have any subtle bones in your body. You know, this is a movie that knows writers to use subtext and they're all cowards. I mean, it's the kind of movie where let me look at some of my notes. I had the bit the like the cut of when after David dies, Jack leaving all his like helmet and his goggles and the trophy he took from the plane on the ground to carry his body out. Like that's so on the nose. I don't know.
Oh my god. And the frick I'm sorry, the second that David took the bear with him, I'm like, "Oh, you're dead.
Oh, he's good. You're dead.
You
You're
are
done.
going to die."
Yeah, but the Kuleshov effect was like less than 20 years old at this point. So
I liked the bear. I'm sorry.
It's a cute fucking bear, but
It's a cute bear, and I like it as a striking image, especially when he drops it. It's like, okay, yep, you're done. You're done.
I liked it as sort of like so when you introduce this guy, they say he's the richest family in town, and then you set him up as a romantic rival to Jack. The audience instantly like goes, "Oh, this guy sucks." I like it as like a no, you're wrong about this guy. He's
Mm-hmm.
just really a nice normal dude, which is true. Like that is the if I was going to sum up David's character in a sentence, nice normal dude would do it.
Yeah, he's just like, and it's weird because his actor like had in another life, Jack would have been the asshole in this love square, love triangle thing because he's very good at looking like one, which I feel bad for saying, but like he's just got kind of like this permanent almost scowl on his face. But then, of course, his characterization is completely different, and that's why he and Jack are able to become friends in spite of all that. Which I don't know. I actually kind of dug that aspect of it. You don't really see that nearly as often in love triangle things. At least, usually they're friends before the love triangle part comes in.
Hmm. And I do like bonding over traumatic shit stories. I like Lord of the Rings, obviously. What was I gonna say? I'm sorry, my train of thought is on multiple rails right now. It's
You're good.
people are solving the trolley problem all over with my train of thought.
oh no.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I would want to go back and if I wanted to write more about it, to talk more about it, I want to know how how common this kind of movie was prior to this, or if it was the progenitor of like
Mhm.
big budget romantic drama. I feel like it was made nowadays. Celine Dion would have a song on the soundtrack with a lot of Irish flute.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, for sure. Or I mean at this point it might be Billie Eilish because Celine Dion is she's dealing with her the illness that makes it hard for her to move now.
All right, that's
Oh.
a shame. I don't know if Billie Eilish could really do big romantic drama songs. I don't think she likes the
Yeah,
belt.
no.
Oh, God, we've kind of lost belters like that as
We have.
music for movies. And
You're not wrong.
Did
That's a shame.
I don't know. We had Adele do a song for whatchamacallit, James Bond.
Ellie.
That was 12 years ago, Ellie.
Oh no.
I know, I hate it too.
Oh.
Yeah, no, power ballads are kind of dying out
which
now.
sucks.
A Power Ballad was nominated for an Oscar this year. He's just Ken. Anywhere else he'd be a 10.
Oh my god!
Do we have an episode on that to look forward to now, Ellie? I'm not mad, but
So my list is just randomly determined Oscar winners. Barbie
Fair,
is
good
therefore on the list because it won for What It Was I Made For, Billie Eilish.
I mean, good luck finding somebody who hasn't seen Barbie.
I'm sure I can
yeah.
find some. There is going to be the issue, and Wings is very lucky.
Wait, hasn't Addie not seen it yet? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's worth discussing since this is our first episode. Like you two were the reason I wanted you two on the first episode is your podcast kind of inspired me to take this on, and I do think
Aww.
that I'm going to have to occasionally bend the no one has seen this requirement or one person hasn't seen this requirement because like you go over the list and some of them are like I'm going to say this again at the end of the episode. Our next episode is Harry and Tonto from 1974. I don't think it's going to be very difficult to find people who haven't seen that one because I haven't seen it. But on the other hand, you've got shit like The Godfather, and who hasn't like how easy is it going to be to find someone who wants to talk about The Godfather, but who up until now hasn't seen it? Have you never
Jazz,
seen
don't see The Godfather!
I'm very interested to hear alternate opinions about The Godfather. I feel like it's one of those movies where like you find this a lot with a lot of like classic dude bro movies where yeah, they're real fucking annoying about this movie. It annoys me because it's really fucking good too. Although I am very happy that I don't have to pretend or that since I'm a girl now, people don't get mad at me when I say that Goodfellas isn't my favorite Martin Scorsese movie.
Yay.
King of comedy, my beloved. That cuts both ways, you know. The other fact, the fact that there is the Barbie is on the list means that also Joker is on the list. Speaking of the King of comedy,
I will say briefly, Sam, it is hilarious to me you said don't see The Godfather because on the one hand, I have one best friend telling me not to see it, but I have another best friend telling me please go see it. This is deeply funny to me, and no, it's not Callie. Before you say anything.
I mean,
anyway.
there are one of the things, and I say this in my intro. One of the things you're going to learn is that a lot of these movies are going to be kind of. I don't think this is true for Wings, which we should get back on our original topic.
This is what editing is for.
No, I'm not going to edit this out. It's a podcast. We talk about shit. Is that like a lot of movies from earlier are going to be fall somewhere on the line of lightly insensitive to outright racist. Put a gun
Honestly,
to my head.
I'm shocked there wasn't really any racism in this movie. I mean, there weren't any people of color in this movie, but like
right, and it was so like one of the things that's interesting is like I mentioned that next February I want to do one on like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner or maybe like Moonlight, and I'm sure that I haven't seen Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, but I don't think it's going to be super positive by modern standards. But that's sort of what makes it an important part of film history because they thought they were being extremely positive. And by the same token, Gone with the Wind won a bunch of Oscars. You excited to talk about Gone with the Wind? I'm not.
No. Look, I don't care that Vivian Leigh is one of my historical crushes. I am not talking. I hate Scarlett O'Hara with a passion.
I'm excited to finally see Gone with the Wind and to get that bit from is it Rumblefish or I think it's The Outsiders where the two characters get completely obsessed with the book. But man, that movie has a lot to answer for. Wings doesn't so much, and now we're back on topic. It does have a very interesting relationship with European stereotypes.
Yeah.
Like there's exactly one segment where like the main character runs into a British dude, and I wanted to get mad that his dialogue, his title frame is such like generic British sounding. There's a chap in there, But on the
You
other
could
hand,
hear Dick Van Dyke's voice when you read it.
right. But on the other hand, go watch the Americans title cards. Man, there's a lot of used guys in there.
Yep. They're stereotyping everybody, so
Right.
it's okay.
And then, of course, we have to have the French kissing on both cheeks.
I was going to say, it's like, oh my god, and you know what? That third guy almost seemed into it.
Back when men were men, man.
Back when men weren't afraid to, show a little love
The
for their
affection.
fellow countryman.
Give a little kissy.
Well, I also did notice, like, there was exactly one French title card, and it was right after, the David's plane has landed and Jack being in denial, like, oh, go get a doctor, it'll be fine. And the Frenchman who's there is like, nah, dude, if that was like relevant, I would have done it myself. It's over. And then we get
C'est la guerre.
C'est la guerre.
Yep.
It's war. That's war.
Which, I mean, that's the whole point of the movie.
I forgot to look up, and I was going to, but I was trying to tell if that was like, because when I looked up what that meant, it told me that it means there's nothing anyone can do, and like I sort of got that's what he was trying to say even without looking it up. But I was wondering if that was like a French phrase that they use, because some of the
I think it might be.
some of the European turns of phrase they have are amazing.
The more common phrase to hear in French is c'est la vie, c'est le monde. C'est la vie, c'est le monde is that's life, that's the world. Mm-hmm. So I can totally see them adapting it in wartime to c'est la vie, c'est le monde, c'est la guerre.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We are all just specks of dust in the infinite cosmos.
I'm really excited for the fact that I'm not gonna lie to you. There are a lot of French films that won Best Foreign Picture.
No, really?
Some of them probably even quite good. I like. I'm not.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm not even gonna lie. I like a lot of French movies.
Yeah, me too. I literally took a French New Wave class in my sophomore year of college.
Celine Sciamma, my beloved.
Le Beau Sage, my beloved.
We speaking. Well, I didn't look too far into it, but speaking of shit we're gonna have to deal with, do any of you know do you not even know who Celine Sciamma is?
Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire. She got a little bit infamous in the French film industry for after Roman Polanski won an award. She and her, I believe, then girlfriend stormed out of the award ceremony shouting, "Viva la pedophile!"
Fucking iconic behavior.
So Roman Polanski's movies have won 3 different Roman Polanski movies have won Oscars, including one late as 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be like part of the problem that we run into here is like, I'm sorry, The Pianist is an amazing movie. He is a complete monster, though. I did not know who Roman Polanski was when I saw it. I was like 15.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Just wait till he dies. Wait till he dies and then cover it.
That would actually be so funny if when he dies, you just do a whole month celebrating the death by covering them.
Rosemary's Baby, Chinatown, The Pianist.
I think I'm onto something here.
I mean, I did actually have a point bringing up The Pianist, because one of the things that I think makes it actually work is because as much as he was a monster, he was also a victim of the Holocaust, and so he has an insight that like a lot of other artists can't have.
That is true.
And that's what makes this kind of like weird to me. Wings, I thought that Wings would be a lot more harrowing, because by necessity, a lot of the people who worked on it would have been in World War One. But it's not like, except for maybe a little bit of the charge that they have, where
Yeah, it's a surprisingly cheerful take on the war.
Mm-hmm.
Up until like basically the beginning and the end are you get a straight war movie, but then the middle it's all very comedic.
Yeah, I and there have been what I feel are more harrowing adaptations of World War One that have won Oscars. I think that the adaptation of All's Quiet on the Western Front in like the 30s won an Oscar, and the one from a couple of years ago, which is also extremely harrowing, won an Oscar. But I did expect there to be more. There's more honesty to it. It feels very, even when it's at its worst, it feels kind of artificial. Maybe that's just because there was a limit to how visceral they could actually be with the mores and mechanics of the time.
This was pre-Hays Code, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Barely, but yeah.
So, I don't know. I think it might have had more to do with this was the 20s, everybody was riding high. We're never gonna die.
It was also pre-depression. You're right. I think it was the only it was like
Yeah.
there were only like 2 Oscars that happened before the depression.
Yeah, because the depression was October of 29.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. My understanding. I'm not 100%. You know, I have Google in front of me. When was the Hays Code invented?
Starting in the 30s, I'm pretty sure.
1930. Okay, so this was 3
Ooh.
years. The version of the story that I've always heard, and maybe this is a little, how do I put this?
Apocryphal.
I don't even want to say apocryphal. Simplified.
Oh
The
yeah,
version
for sure.
of the story of the creation of the Oscars that I always heard is like after everything that went down with Fatty Arbuckle, there was already people looking at like this new medium has an unprecedented ability to reflect reality, and we need to censor it accordingly. And the Oscars were sort of created in response to that. And now look, we are uplifting the best and brightest of us to blah 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 blah. And that is obviously not always the case. Like I can name a dozen films that I absolutely despise that have won Oscars, and another couple dozen that I just think are kind of mid. We're like 2 years out from the ceremony. They're like, yeah, we've got Coda, we've got Drive My Car here. We're just gonna give it to Coda though. Sorry.
You go for Coda over fucking Green Book?
No, Green Book was a different year.
No, I know, but Green Book is a way
Green
more
Book, I
insulting
don't. Green
Best
Book
Picture win than Coda.
was not in the category of movies that I found mid. I was going with movies I found mid there. Coda was fine. It was
Fair
perfectly
enough.
acceptable. I couldn't. Yeah, Shakespeare in Love is
Shakespeare in
deeply
Love.
mid.
Let's go with that.
Fuck me. La La Land, except that didn't actually win Best.
Did not win!
Ha! For like a hot second.
And like I when we get to more recent movies, maybe even like there's not a lot of information that I could dig up about the process by which movies were chosen at that point. A lot of it appears to be just kind of like
Mm.
vibes based. But I do want to talk at some point, maybe even do a special episode about the rise of like the really intense for your consideration campaign there, which has gone through. I think the modern version was pretty much invented by Crash. Speaking of movies, I think are complete dog shit that won unwatchable movie.
Seems like most people do.
Look forward to that episode.
Whee!
Do we have to?
We can't not talk about it. It's so infamous.
A movie appearing on this list is not an endorsement of it or anyone in it. As I said in our intro, 2016 Suicide Squad won an Oscar. My favorite movie from 2016, The Handmaiden, wasn't even nominated for anything.
Yeah.
That is a big old boo. But
I mean, it's very interesting to see, like, even what endures out of the Best Picture nominations, because now I'm looking and, like, I have never heard of Seventh Heaven or The Racket, which were the other two considered Best Picture thingies that year.
But meanwhile, the past 2 years, I've been very happy with what won Best Picture personally. But yeah, it's just weird to see how few of them actually stand the test
It
of
is,
time.
and I think it's. I don't know. Like one of the things I wanted to discuss at some point was the from most episodes would be like what do you think of what won? What do you think of what else came out that year that should have won? I can't think of a single other. I think I might have seen The Circus at one point, which Charlie Chaplin was nominated for best director for and best actor. Yes, best actor. There it is. But I don't have a. I've never seen The Dove. I've never seen Sunrise. I don't even know how they decided that outstanding picture was more important than best unique and artistic picture. It's an era of film that has kind of faded in a lot of ways, and it's also very interesting to see which when awards show up. Like you look at this, you look at the first Academy Award list. It's pretty sparse. There's no supporting. There is adapted and original screenplay, but they're called writing.
Well, I was gonna say supporting and the supporting actor and actress categories were created to union bust.
Well, there you go. See,
Oh, that sucks.
there's no best foreign. But I do know what movie won why there's no best makeup and what movie won best makeup for the first time. So that's on the list, which is An American Werewolf in London.
Nice.
Cool.
I would very much like to be on that one.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much more to say about Wings though. It doesn't. It's kind of like hard to engage with it as a text on its own.
I mean, I'll take a little more time to fucking dunk on Jack.
Jack sucks.
Go for it. And Mary, he is not the love of your life. He is literally just
some
a guy.
There's a great. I think it's like the first or second title card. It says like he pulled her from a bonfire at one point and wishes he had, and I'm like, so this hot woman is incredibly into you, and you are regretful about this. You absolute quit.
Right? You're an idiot.
It's not even like what's wrong with her? She's into the same stuff you're into. She's funny.
They actually have really good they actually have really good chemistry in that first scene. But that's because I'm a sucker for shared interests with couples. And the shooting star motif is cute.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to say he's in denial about his feelings, but like he did paint the exact same thing on the side of his plane that she painted on the side of his car. Like, come on, man.
Oh, well, see, that doesn't mean anything, because Mary's just a good pal. She's practically one of the guys.
Hold up. Was Clara Bow secretly gay?
No, not from from the brief perusal of her Wikipedia I got, although, good lord, that woman had a very sad backstory.
Better ending to this movie, Mary and Sylvia get together, leaving Jack out in the cold.
Yeah, we are well aware of this podcast's standing opinion. It's always better when it's gay.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunately not. I was like wondering what movie could I do for Pride Month, and I was looking over it like, not doing Danish Girl, not doing Dallas Buyers Club, not doing not doing this, not doing that.
Moonlight?
Yeah, it was gonna be Moonlight. It's gonna be Moonlight. I love Moonlight.
Yeah,
Moonlight's an amazing movie.
Did Brokeback Mountain win anything?
I'm sure it won something, because it definitely
that was
got
the
buzz.
one that Crash beat, and people are still salty. Understandably so.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it won director, screenplay, and score.
I would have.
So how the fuck didn't it win more?
I was still like, even as I like Brokeback Mountain a lot more than Crash, I still think Good Night and Good Luck would have been my pick from that year. But we're not here to cover what I think should have won, except when we are.
I mean, that would be a fun extra special episode.
I mean,
but...
sometimes we'll cover it when we're talking about the movie in question. We just can't do it this time because I don't really have any thoughts on.
But, speaking of women that Clara Bow had more chemistry with that French lady, how is it that the two most sober people in that building had the most drunk girl in a bar bathroom energy when, that French lady was talking to her, tried to cheer her up and help her win her man back? Like, that was cute, even if yes, Mary, you deserve better. You're putting way too much effort into trying to win this guy.
Yeah.
She got ejected from the ambulance corps for him.
Yeah.
Mary died for your sins, Jack.
That's so. That wasn't even fair. Like, she didn't even get to explain.
Didn't get to explain. Well, of course not. She's a
also,
woman.
Military police are supposedly famously inflexible about shit like that.
Oh, I'm sure. Actually, I remember early on in the movie, I was joking, when she didn't get title cards on the first things she said, it's just like, wow, a silent film figured out a way to silence a woman.
I don't know, the movie isn't very. I mentioned this when I said that putting Clara Bow top build is essentially lying. It's not quite as bad as, oh god, what is the name of the really boring Marvel movie with Jon Snow in it?
Eternals.
Putting Jon Snow.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard mixed
It's not
things.
very good. But putting Jon Snow in.
I liked it.
I didn't hate it. I just didn't think it was very. Without getting too far into it, although that's another director who was on my list.
Yeah, Chloe Zhao.
Chloe Zhao.
Zhao, yes.
Without getting too far into it, I think it's one of those movies where half of it is a really interesting movie and half of it is a Marvel movie, and those two pieces don't go very well together. But putting Jon Snow
Bummer.
in your trailers and marketing, you're lying to people. You're lying to people. He's not in the movie. He has 3 minutes of screen time. I totally lost my train of thought. Oh no, but I do think the movie isn't very concerned with Mary. Honestly, It
No.
kind of mirrors Jack a little bit, who's only concerned with Mary once he like finally puts it together that Sylvia doesn't like him. Just kind of feels bad for him
Yeah.
Isn't that every girl's dream, to be the
to be the
rebound?
rebound.
Oof.
I did find it extremely funny that like there so the fight that Jack and David have is Jack is carrying around a picture of Sylvia in a locket that she gave to him. In actuality, dear audience, she wrote like something on the back for David, and then Jack showed up and
All my love.
he just took it essentially. He's like, "Oh, this is for me," and bounced. Which fuck you, man. But then when David finds like some slapstick happens and the picture falls out, and David reads the note on the back and realizes like, oh, Sylvia gave him this, but it was for me, and like refuses to like give it to him. I think he does tear it up, doesn't he?
He does tear it up, and then Jack has to put it back together. So you have to. Again, why the fuck do we never see Jack talk to Sylvia when he comes home?
I feel like you owe her an apology, my dude.
Several.
I would be worried because Jack is kind of a shitheel. I would be worried that rather than be like, "Hey, babe, sorry I was kind of a shitty dude about you and your boyfriend," he'd be like, "Hey, you're single now."
I don't think he'd go that far, given he's the reason she's single.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Maybe they thought that like the scene that he has with his parents was good enough synecdoche for him apologizing for accidentally killing David. That was a good scene. That's probably my favorite scene in
That
the
was a hell
movie.
of a scene, though.
It's the scene that feels the most authentic, I feel like, which I guess is kind of an accomplishment. It's not an extremely it is artificial in the way that silent films kind of just necessarily have to be. I guess is what I'm gonna say about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's kind of the thing. I feel like, much like having to. Basically, if you're going to watch anything that came before the 70s or whatnot, honestly, barely even that, you're going to have to deal with some level of artificiality. Because, was really like around that time that they started like really leaning into realism more. It's just, if you're going to watch older movies, you're just going to have to learn to stomach both racism and artificiality, unfortunately.
It's interesting because I mentioned earlier that I felt like the way that they act kind of reminds me a lot of mime. And there's a YouTuber I watch, Morbid Zoo. If you've never watched her stuff, go watch it. Uh, and she talks a lot about, stay with me here, clowns, specifically how outside of America and especially in Mexico and France, clowns are not entertainment for children. And mimes in particular are mostly designed to be like parodies of real life, kind of sad in a way. And there is something, and that's because they want to be authentic, but they can't because of the nature of mime performance. And there's something to that, but I think that there is like I think that there can be degrees of authenticity with films even before like they started being really more realistic in like the late 60s and the 70s. But like silent films always have just like I know how the world sounds like, and movies can do better or worse jobs than at portraying that, but silent films have just such that extra layer of artificiality that it sort of like it puts me at a distance before the movie's even started.
Sad but true. And again, like, if you want to expand your horizons, you got to learn to deal with that.
I mean, there are plenty of silent films that I like a lot. Most of them tend to lean into the unreality of it. I really like a lot of early German horror films, like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I think that silent films are a really good medium for horror.
Mm.
It, I just mentioned the Morbid Zoo. She has a video where she talks about the Babadook, and like the Babadook is kind of a silent movie monster in a lot of ways.
I see that.
But I don't know. I like this movie that I'm more than I'm expecting, but it's one of those movies I can't. I have an emotional distance, and I don't know if I can like fix that. Anyone have any final thoughts?
I'm glad I gave this a go. Like, I'm fascinated by this movie because, again, like, I see the influences, but I see all the things that Hollywood was like, yeah, we're not going to do it quite like this anymore.
Again, stop making war movies until there is no more war.
Well, I think they're trying to stop the war with the war movies. It's not working.
You know what the definition of insanity is, right?
Oh.
There's this period, I have my big spreadsheet list of all the movies that won Oscars each, and then I have a different spreadsheet for each year and whether or not I've seen them before.
Right.
And on the spreadsheet, there is a section right around World War II where just all of the winners for best documentary are war propaganda movies.
Oof.
And that is going to be really interesting because I can't think of a single good movie about a war that was made contemporary to that war.
Astute observation.
And I don't know if that's true for all forms of media, but and that's gotten more true as we've gone on, as the military has gotten more and more influence over how military movies are made. It is kind of interesting that this movie was made before that was a thing, really.
Mhm. I mean, the medium was still so new. I feel like they didn't really think much of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so I went and looked it up. Yeah, there were some of the planes and pilots were from the Air Corps. So, but I don't know. I wonder if they saw it at that point as the 20s were in the middle of film's evolution to the dominant medium of the 20th century. But I don't know if people took them serious. I do think the Oscars were a first step in taking movies kind of seriously,
As well as union busting.
as well as union busting. What's entertaining is it's kind of by our metrics, it was kind of a flop because it was at a budget of $2 million, which today is like $30 million, but it only made 3.8 million at the box office.
But it also ended up being like the 6th highest grossing film of that year.
Right. I'm not saying it was an actual flop. It was definitely made a lot of money by their standards, but the usual metric of whether or not a movie has made money is 2.5 times its budget at the box office.
Yeah, but they were also making a lot less, fewer movies.
Yep.
They also owned the theaters back then. No splitting profits with them.
Joy.
The film industry has always been a nightmare. That is the point I think I want to end on. I believe very strongly in the medium of film as a mode of telling important artistic stories, and I am deeply cynical about the industry that makes it. That's my final thought. And next time, we'll be covering one of the movies from an era that is a lot more realistic. We are covering 1974's Harry and Tonto, won, I believe it's Best Actor for Art Carney. Don't worry about Tonto. I know that everyone's like, oh my god, when you saw that name. Nope. Tonto's the name of a cat.
Thank God.
Sam is looking at me
So
incredulously.
So Sam, you could just be mad that this reminds you of the holiday special instead.
Yep. It won best actor for Art Carney. Yes, Art Carney, and was nominated for best original screenplay. And I once again, I don't know if we've finalized who's going to be participating in that. But once again, I have our never seen it before requirement covered. Thank you so much for coming out. Do either of you have plugs?
Sam, you want to go first, or shall I?
I am the host of 6 Degrees of Star Wars, the podcast where we explore all the ways George Lucas's flagship franchise surrounds us, binds us, and penetrates us in the landscape of cinema, including this very movie, as we already discussed. I'm also bouncing around on the wider internet as La Femme Fictionale. I make YouTube videos sometimes. I am on the Twitter still. I am on TikTok, but I don't post anything there. And yeah, that's me. Also, stop doing war!
Yeah. And I am the host of In Each Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new. And this movie is also relevant to it because we mostly focus on public domain works. And this movie went into the public domain back in 2023. So that's really interesting. And I am also on Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok at Faye Riviera. Oh, and also Blue Sky. Just got that. So yeah, come join us there too.
As always, I can be found on Football and Tuxedos at tumblr.com, with dashes between all the words, and on Twitter and Blue Sky at LSR42. My Medium page is also LSR42. I post there once every 6,000 years. And you can also find at iwanttoreview.blogspot.com my blog where I reviewed every single episode of The X-Files and The Lone Gunman. It took me 7 years.
And if you want to experience this movie yourself, it is The 2017, I believe, restoration is on
2012.
Yeah,
2012 restoration is on the Internet Archive. There is also a version on Tubi,
Bless the Internet Archive.
and you can rent it from any version you like. Because it's in the public domain, you can even download it yourself and make your own DVD release. Have fun!
Yay!
Thank you for coming out, and I just realized I don't have to sign off.